Homeschool parents, this is a message for you. As a homeschooler, I know you work hard for us. You have many different things to manage.
Our Thinking, Feeling, Willing program is your roadmap to a successful Waldorf homeschool journey. Gain the confidence you need to be the teacher your child wants and transform your homeschool experience. Homeschooling with Waldorf Essentials is one like no other. You not only have curriculum options, you can also add our Thinking, Feeling, Willing program onto your curriculum. What's in the Thinking, Feeling, Willing program? Rhythm, inner work, temperament, the Waldorf curriculum, learning and strengthening your skills in music, circle time, form drawing, handwork, painting, drawing, modeling, festivals, reading, writing, spelling, eurythmy and movement, and our bonus content. Something else you'll get when you join Waldorf Essentials that you will not find anywhere else is the community, and we all need that as homeschoolers.
This is your invitation to fill your cup. We know you're rooting for us. We are rooting for you too.
Welcome, everybody, to our podcast. I am so excited today to have my good friend, Gerard Siepker, with me. He is our teacher from South Africa. We met through Seasons of Seven, but I am so excited and so happy that you are also my good friend because we have a lot of fun chit-chatting together. And yes, so anyway, today we're going to talk about Class 5. And Gerard's going to talk to us about, just sort of the things that are who's ready for it and the content for Class 5. But before we get started, I want to go ahead and have you introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself, Gerard.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's always this beautiful thing with the two of us. I think even when we have meetings, we sometimes have to stop typing and focus because, it will be about movies or something.
Sending each other notes in between. Yeah.
And this is the director, so it's a bit naughty, but anyway. So my name is Gerard Siepker, and I just always love how my American colleagues, they say Gerard so beautifully. And
we
so
did
it's
that
very
for like the first month until you corrected us.
And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So you often say it even better than people that I know. So I'm an Afrikaans man, so it's Gerard Siepker. It's very Germanic, and so I have. I don't want to say how many years. It's been a long time that I've been a Waldorf teacher, and then we're going for our 4th year with Seasons of 7. So it's a beautiful time because our time zones don't clash. It's a Saturday afternoon, and it's a winter's day, and it's
I have all these clocks up here, so I always know what time. This one is Gerard's time zone, so I always know what time it is at your house.
So it's really beautiful so that we can have this. And yes, I've been very blessed to have taught from class 1 to class 8 now. And this year we also on new adventures with guardianship.
So excited. We'll talk about that a little bit towards the end because I want to tell everybody about the Guardian program. I am like super excited about what we're doing for high school. So let's talk about class 5. Tell me who is ready for class 5 because
what a beautiful question. I get this. I have to get a little bit sentimental because it was the year that I started my Waldorf journey. I took a class from class 5, and you know what? It's easy when people say it's the golden age, and those are words until you experience it. Because I'm also very blessed to be finishing up with the bricks and mortar class now in class 5, and those. I'm going to be naughty. Those children are perfect. All children are perfect. All children are perfect. But class 5 children, goodness gracious, they have everything right. Don't you agree? It's just, and so class 4 really prepares them because the watching kind of stops. They watch, but they get stuck in. They find their way. They're so upright and they're so in touch with what they want to do. They write more, they challenge themselves, they move better. And I'm always that Waldorf teacher that just says a big thank you to the curriculum because it just works.
They seem almost graceful in class 5.
Very,
much more so than they were in class 4 when you might have been focusing so much on the Loki type things that they're doing or thinking or saying. But class feels like you can almost breathe out just for a year because class 6 is going to kick your hiney.
It's exactly, and you see, and I tease the parents mercilessly if you've been on a long journey. I always say to them in class 6, there's either a lot of conflict between the teacher and the parent, or a lot of hugging, because but we prepared because we've seen it. We see how we see the change. We see how they're not so kind anymore. But it's because they have their own turmoil. But you see in class 5, this curriculum, you can see it feeding them. It's I love when we start with the ancient mythologies, right? Because those stories are still very beautifully rich. So you weave that in, and for me, I often focus a lot more on the Indian myths, because it's vast and rich. And then, of course, I love to have that conversation with them, because now we can start seeing the creation story thread of all cultures.
Right. And it is it's like a bookend almost. You really get this.
Exactly.
What comes after class 5 is almost like it's the history from that space forward. And so now you've kind of given it to them. And I remember we did not start with the ancient cultures. I think that was our second block this year, because my daughter just finished class 5. And she was so hungry for those ancient cultures, so hungry and so indignant that I was making her do other things first.
and you know what I love? It's like I'm very lucky to have in my class Hindu children, like in my bricks and mortar, Hindu, Muslim, and so when we speak about Brahma and Shiva, and there's this we can share, and of course you've got your Catholic children, you have a beautiful mixture. So the stories become exceptionally rich in, like, I've just started Persia, so we speak about Zarathustra and you speak about Ahriman, and then you speak about light and dark, and you know what happens? It's that you can see these little aha moments. Oh, and what's beautiful? There's no judgment. Children just see the story and go, "Oh my gosh, okay, that's a lot like mine."
Right.
And so
and so many people are so worried that if you're going to talk about these things, their children are going to go to these things. But truly what I see happening is they see the similarities, and it is such a beautiful space because they're not really judging it.
At all, because they're loving the warmth of those stories still. The Indra and like even Ahriman, and then like the creation story of when the heart of man is planted again, and out of that man and woman's born, and then Ahriman has these dark creatures. You can't really call a snake a dark creature, but it's the stereotyping. So if Ahura Mazda makes one, Ahriman makes another one, and it's this beautiful juxtaposition in a way, and how children can do, and when the art comes out of their own, it shifts. And when you look at it, this is the thing that blows my mind. When you look at a class 5 book, you can feel your job's done here. Because now when you draw on the board, you have to be on your toes, because they have found their niche. And you know what? They're better than you now. You've got to practice.
I concur. And I don't know if it's because they have way more time to practice than we do.
Oh, when they do their borders and they do their writing, and then you think, what's just happened? And it feels overnight, but it hasn't been. It's been
bit by bit.
It's beautiful. And I feel then one thing flows into another. Like when you do the botany, and the observational skills. I start this little tradition that you have to have a plant with you during those 4 weeks. Melissa, something beautiful happens. They give them names. They water them. Some children will take them out when we do movement, and those plants really live, and then you start doing that beautiful Goethean observation without telling them,
Right. Don't give them all the words for it, but right.
Look at that plant every week, and then sometimes as a teacher you forget, and they come, oh, did you see? Look here. And my best was when a mushroom grows in your pot plant, because then you think, thank you. Yes, that's what you want,
Yes. That's a pretty.
So class 5 is. So I get very excited about class 5, and I think for a teacher and even a parent, there is that harmony that you can feel. I can breathe, I can breathe. It flows very easily. There's still a lot of work to do, but the work gets piled on them, because not piled on them, they've got to own it and they want it.
Right. And I do feel like class 5 really prepares them for what's coming. Like they've always had rich content through the lower grades, but the content for class 5 seems like it's so much more, and they're taking in so much more, and it's really in preparation for what's coming next and what's coming next. I also found, as my daughter she was a very young, so her birthday's in April, so she just finished class 5, and she's 12, and I could see the change right around 12, just as it should be, to I'm ready to move on.
Yes.
So
Yes.
like she was, thankfully we just had botany at the end, and so it wasn't too many stories, but I could feel the difference in her, and I could feel her opinions come back.
Yes.
It was almost like they took a break for a year. Yeah. And now I'm like, shh, we can't say those things in public. Wait till we get to the car. There's definite difference between that 11-year-old and that 12-year-old, so much so.
But also in their humor. For me, you've now known me, I'm going to say many years. I feel a success in my class is the humor. It's like also the higher self. I'm not talking clowning. They get it. They can dish it out beautifully. I have children that they love to tell you the dad jokes. You have to harness that, and you take that into a child that struggles with writing, and it's like a seed. It pops.
I agree.
So it's all these gems that they show you.
I agree. I think I love class 5, but I say that about every grade. Every grade, I'm like, I'm so excited.
We all do.
I'm at this place now because I've homeschooled, all 5 of my children, and I'm on my youngest, and I had this like bittersweet moment at the last of class 5 going, oh wait, it's the last time I'm teaching that.
Yep.
And as we're going into class 6, like knowing it, of course, my children all say, I'm going to bring my children to you. It's not the same when you're the grandparent.
It's not.
It's not, because you think about those children differently. But no, it's just, each class is just so, so beautiful. So let's talk about like the general content of class 5. And is it different? Because I was thinking about this with you in South Africa, and I always, I write curriculum, so I'm always trying to think about all the angles for wherever people live. But do you do anything different in your bricks and mortar in South Africa than you do at season 7 that has sort of all the children?
Just our geography. If you think about it, it's really just the geography, and even that. So for me, what I've loved is to do this beautiful learning curve for me, because I'm teaching American children. So I've really immersed myself in the States and the capitals and of course the habitats and etc. So it is your ancient myths. It is, and you know what, we can call it history because it moves towards the history. And I really just need to share one thing. In Rudolf Steiner's Indications, he speaks about these epochs, and he speaks about especially Greece. Okay, and what is so amazing, and it just again, during the time of Greece, you had thinking, feeling, and strong will. Okay, when you look at a class 5 child, you're not going to get them better. They want to move. They move well. They are thinking, and they have this will, and so because they're orators, so when you do speech work, they all stand up a little bit. When they get to class 6 and 7, you've got to maybe say, I'll give you $50 if you just stand up and you know what I mean? Yes. So, and then again, you just see that the wisdom in that, because then when you go into Rome in class 6, it's more about the speaking. It should be. You see things shift and change, but that's why you do Greece. So I just wanted to give that. And then of course the geography, because they've gone from their little world and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I love it when there's a tiny bit of overwhelm, because I think, wow, and then it gets exciting. I remember when, I'm sure you did that as a child, when you played it with an atlas. Do you remember what that was like? And you're finding these spots, and
Because you're
and
really
it's
sort of looking at the world in such a different way then.
exactly, and you see, you really start telling them America. I don't, and it's vast. It is, you look at different time zones, you look at biomes, you look at it's, and you know what, there, when you say, when is it, remember when we were talking, you're saying, when is it too much? You've got to be careful now, because it can become facts and intellectualization, and then children catch onto something that they love and they hold on to that, and then it becomes
Almost
just
obsessive.
one dimensional and obsessive. It does. So you've got to work with it quite, I call it homeopathically, where you've got to
No, I
be,
like that. I
you
like
know
that absolutely, because I do think that it is, and I'm not sure how public schools are where you are, but in American schools, public schools, it's often they teach American history, third, fourth, fifth grade, like the same content
yes.
over and over. And so when parents are used to that thought and they come to me and they ask me like, well, where is this American history? And I say, well, we actually put it where they'll keep it, where they'll remember it. So when we're talking about geography and of America and the regions, we're not talking about all the horrible things that happened. We're just highlighting here and there, because it's really easy to go really deep. It's really easy, and they're not quite ready yet. So really they'll be ready when you get to like 8th and 9th grade and you start talking about that more deeply, when you start talking about the slave trade, or you start talking about the Trail of Tears with native people here.
Exactly.
That is, you want to save that for when their intellect is open enough that they are ready to look at it from a different way. What tends to happen in my experience is when you do that with an 11 or 12-year-old, you're going to just make them sad. And
Correct. And you've got to handle that well, because you see, what you also want for the class 8 and 9 is that they don't just use one source. You see, that we've got to dig a bit deeper. But many older teachers have always said to me, we sometimes can't hold them back, but we've got to hold them in channeling them, because if a child wants to know more, you should show them that. But you see, at the moment in the world, we're showing them too much too quickly.
Agreed.
And we forget that, for example, my child's in class 7, and she sometimes, when we discuss something, we talk something, she's reading the Diary of Anne Frank. I had to explain to her the other day for the first time. She said, Dad, what were the Nazis? And we were alone in the car. It's one of I love the Second World, I don't love the Second World War, but it's the facts and what happened during that time. So I had to explain that to her.
Because she wasn't there yet in history.
She's not there yet, but she's in class 7. So she's going into class 8. But there is an awareness. So it's a beautiful moment that and I'm speaking like, even as parents, you've got to have those moments and think, okay, think now, think. You get, because sometimes here we go. Where do babies come from? Well, here we go.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, when I was pregnant with Sam, who's now almost 17, I'm my big belly, and I had my second son was 6, so he was just eye level. And I remember we were like in Home Depot, and I'm checking out, and he's eye level, and you can tell he's really thinking. And so he says, so how did that baby get in there? Yeah. And the cashier's eyes got as big as saucers, and she's trying not to laugh. And I just, well, let's just talk about it in a few minutes. So we get to the car, and I say, you know what? God put him there. That was all he needed. And he was 6. And that's not the invitation to say everything when they're 6. So you really have to, as a parent, tease out, what are they actually asking?
Exactly.
Like, are they asking just a really simple question? Correct. Really simple answer? You don't have to give them the keys to the universe with every question.
I sometimes think that little mind goes, that's not what I wanted to hear.
Right. I think that. I think they're like, and then I think it actually stunts them from asking questions later, because they're afraid of the full.
It's a little bit too real too quickly.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. So let's see. We talked about ancient cultures. We've got some botany in class 5. And how would you say I would love your perspective. When we are looking at man and animal in class 4, it's the specific relationship. And when we're looking at botany in class 5, it is again a specific relationship. Plants to
Again, you speak about human beings. You bring that to, you know, with our breathing, because you bring photosynthesis to them in class 5, but you bring it again in class 8. Okay, so, but then, and it's this beautiful, our breathing. And so the art in itself, I love drawing a human being on the board, and then you have this correlation. So we are constantly trying to bring the science, okay, not just the touchy-feely.
right.
You are bringing the science. You're bringing the source of the sun and what happens, and the compost, and the real life. And you know, I mean, Melissa, it's unbelievable, even for an adult, when you do put a little bean.
Right. It's always a miracle.
And you think, goodness gracious, you know.
Yeah.
So we do name those things, but it's again, people don't have the patience to observe. Okay, we're not observing. We want answers. But then you say, but what has the answer brought you? Have you worked a little bit for that answer? Have you seen something? You see, we're not seeing, we're not experiencing stuff, you know. And then even, you know, for me, sometimes when I am making the videos, and sometimes I am on the beach, I choose to not take a picture. And you know, I share rhinos and elephants and everything with the children because I want to. There are moments that I think, this needs to be mine. Okay, as a 50-year-old man that thinks, oh, this is beautiful, I can't. And we need to start bringing that, because otherwise we're walking around like this. And hey, in this season of 7 people, this is our work, but we've harnessed that, and we've brought that beauty to it. And then it's quick, and okay, what's next? You haven't had time to sit with it at all.
Right. I think that is so important. And you know, I work in class 4 to start consolidating that a bit, but then class 5, they really get to really practice it, the space of what does this mean? And what am I thinking about this? For the first time really in their childhood, they're really thinking in a much different, much deeper way. They're asking questions that, again, aren't asking about the keys to the universe generally, but they're asking like some depth that you have to be prepared for as a parent, and you have to be prepared to, if you're not good at just sitting and processing something, you have to get good at it so that you can teach it.
Exactly. The quiet moments, just quickly. And sometimes you don't have the answer, and that's also okay. Totally Let's find it. It's teaching 101. Let's find it together. I don't, you know, because sometimes you want to, and then you ruin it. You can ruin a moment. And I think that's what we have to focus on with the children.
I agree. That's so beautiful. All right, we're going to close up this part and dive into our patron only space. Before I do, I just want to say, if any of you have children that are going into class 5 and you'd like Gerard to be your teacher in 2023, 2024, join us over at Seasons of 7 for class 5. He's also teaching class 8, and he's going to have a presence in our high school that I'm so excited about. So let's actually talk really quickly about the guardianship. What things do you and Miss Daniela have up your sleeve for our kids?
Oh, you know, it's such an amazing thing, because it's quite organic, and we really want the high school children to take ownership, firstly, of community, of each other.
Right.
So
which is so hard, I think, sometimes in this virtual space. So
correct. So we are looking at things like your social responsibilities. What kind of like outreach, what can you do, what in your community? So and also sometimes giving them subjects to speak about, so that when we meet on a Thursday, that we have that. What are your challenges? How are you doing your time management? Sometimes they feel a little bit, I always say, that's safer to speak to their guardian, or the guardians, to say, this is what I'm struggling with. This again assists our colleagues in the high school to say, we're having a bit of a problem or a challenge in getting things completed. Do you see? And Melissa, you and I have spoken about this a lot. The pressure comes, class 8, 9 deadlines and these things. Your boss one day, I've said this many times, he's not going to care about your beautiful green eyes and your winning smile. He's going to fire you because you haven't made it.
And that's so important.
And so you have to take ownership of that, and because you have time, so we're going to assist in that kind of thing. What are your challenges? What can you do to better that? And that's kind of, and then of course speak about the festivals and create festivals and so it's quite vast, and it's
I think it's going to be so much fun. I know that with the first few years we've been really trying to figure out how do we, because the lower grades feel cohesive because they have one teacher. I mean, they have enrichment too, but they have one teacher that really holds them, and the high school hasn't totally felt that way. And so I really feel very excited to have this piece, because I do think they'll feel held. You'll be like the homeroom teacher and the counselor all in one space. And I feel like that is, I think it's so important. And I think about especially kids that have, not necessarily homeschooled ones, because homeschoolers, we're a lot more active than people think we are, but kids that maybe didn't do anything for the last few years, they're now in a space of almost feeling stunted. And so this will help them come out of that shell a little bit and help them with those things, simple things and complicated things. And so I'm super excited about that opportunity. All right, so we're going to close this. If you want to hear the rest of our conversation about class 5, including all crazy and juicy bits, then join us over on our Patreon.
Find our Patreon at Ariel's Light. So Ariel's Light, if you haven't heard already, is the ministry that we started this year. Interfaith, so we welcome people of all faiths to come and experience and converse and really get to know this conscious parenting space. I see it as a space for people that might be deeply into their religion, like being able to go deeper in what that parent-child relationship means. And then people that are just trying to figure out, like, what does this inner work journey mean to me? We're in that space, and I've been there trying to figure out, well, how do I bring what's welling up inside me to my children so that they aren't lost in confusion, so that they actually have this piece of goodness and beauty that Steiner always talks about. So the ministry has roots of anthroposophy, and we will be talking about things from an anthroposophical standpoint, but also really bringing you good content that you can bring into your life